Und unsere ganze Bewaffnung war ja, es ist eine Schönwetterbewaffnung. Sie ist sehr tüchtig, sie ist gut, aber seit der ältesten Zeiten her, wieder kann man nicht Krieg führen.
Hitler then speaks about late 1939, the period when Stalin attacked Finland, and Hitler was planning to attack France, the first major step on the road to subjugating Europe.
Wir sind im Herbst 1939 immer vor der Frage gestanden, ich wollte unter allen Umständen angreifen und ich war der Überzeugung, dass ich in 6 Wochen mit Frankreich fertig werden werde.
Hitler is boasting, and his hubris is audible.
He wanted to attack under all conditions, so this is very strong.
Hitler's blitzkrieg tactics depended on all conditions being favorable. Hitler had invaded France once before as a soldier in World War I.
Ich kann der Nordhand erzählen, ich bin 4 Jahre lang Soldat gewesen im Großen Krieg und so kam diese Verzögerung. Hätte ich im Jahre 39 Frankreich erledigt, dann wäre die Weltgeschichte anders gelaufen. So musste ich bis zum Jahr 1940 warten.
Hitler did not shrink from telling the truth about his conquest of France, a nation which had wanted to help the Finns in 1939. It is not surprising that Carl Mannerheim, an officer and a gentleman, had fallen silent.
Ich konnte im September oder Oktober mit unseren Waffen keinen Krieg mehr beginnen, das war ja unmöglich.
Soon the conversation would turn to a matter of life and death for both men, war with the Soviet Union, a war that shockingly Hitler claims he did not want.
Davor hatte ich eine große Sorge, daher auch mein Bestreben, Verhandlungen, diese Zeit zu überwinden, bis wir stark genug waren.
Is it possible that Adolf Hitler sincerely wanted peace, not war? June 4th, 1942. For Hitler, seduction was just as effective a weapon as threats. He mainly left the bullying and threatening to his SS and Gestapo underlings.
He was a good speaker. He could inspire people with his style of speaking. That was his strength, too. It was also his strength when he faced his admirals and generals. He could assert himself, even when they didn't agree with him.
Our analysis concludes that the tape is genuine. But how genuine was Hitler? In his cold-blooded calculus, one of the reasons he invaded Russia was simply to ensure access to nearby Romanian oil.
Weil ich immer eine Angst hatte, dass Russland im Spätherbst plötzlich Rumänien überfällt und sich in den Besitz der Petroleumquellen setzt. Und wir wären ja im Spätherbst 1940 noch nicht fertig gewesen. Wenn nun Russland die rumänischen Petroleumquellen besetzt hätte, dann wäre ja Deutschland verloren.
In war, access to raw materials can mean the difference between victory and defeat. Hitler had positioned an army of 200,000 German soldiers in northern Scandinavia to secure the vital nickel mines there. But the tape reveals that Hitler suspected that Stalin was eyeing the Romanian oil fields to the south.
Brauchten nur die Petroleumquellen besetzen. Ich konnte im September oder Oktober mit unseren Waffen keinen Krieg mehr beginnen, das war ja unmöglich. Wir haben eine große deutsche Produktion, aber was allein die Luftwaffe verschlingt, was unsere Panzerdivisionen verschlingen, das ist denn doch etwas ganz Ungeheures. Es ist ein Verbrauch, der über alle Vorstellungen weggeht.
But Hitler couldn't stop now. By attacking Russia, Hitler had placed the German Reich in a fight to the death.
When Germany attacked the Soviet Union, they decided to sell this attack as a preventive war, which could be seen as a moral justification for the attack.
Hitler didn't attack Russia because he thought Stalin was threatening Germany. Hitler attacked because he thought Stalin was weak. It would be a fatal miscalculation.
Germany's overall situation in the summer of 1942 was pretty desperate.
Hitler was masterful at playing the victim. Every war he began was presented as an act of self-defense. The invasion of Russia was no different.
Diese Zeit zu überwinden, bis wir stark genug waren, diesen erpresserischen Forderungen entgegenzutreten. Die Forderungen waren dann einfach nackte Erpressung. Das sind Erpressungen gewesen. Die Russen wussten, dass wir uns nicht helfen konnten, dass wir im Westen gebunden waren. Sie konnten uns alles erpressen.
Now, Hitler casually circles back to the subject that had brought him to Mannerheim, Finland. This is the heart of the conversation, where Hitler has to persuade Mannerheim that he has always looked out for Finland's welfare. Even Hitler knew full well that was a lie. Back in 1939, during the brief period when Hitler and Stalin were allies, Soviet Foreign Minister Vyacheslav Molotov had been keen to stake the Soviet claim to the Finnish territories.
Erst bei dem Besuch von Molotov, das waren die vier Punkte, der eine Punkt, der Finnland betraf, die Freiheit, sich vor den finnischen Bedrohungen zu schützen, sagte, die können mir doch nicht einreden, dass Finnland sie bedroht.
In this part of the recording where he's telling the story about his conversation with Molotov, he's not just telling what happened and not describing the situation, he's really acting it out. Maybe in order to be more credible.
Ja, ihre Existenz ist doch nicht von Finnland bedroht. Da sage ich ihm, wir würden einen weiteren Krieg in der Ostsee würden wir nicht mehr als passive Zuschauer hinnehmen können.
Hitler seems to be trying to deceive Mannerheim by saying he had warned Molotov that Germany would intervene if Russia were to attack Finland. Because at exactly this time, the fall of 1939, Hitler was making his unholy pact with Stalin. The Hitler-Stalin pact had a secret clause that gave Finland to Stalin. This was the real reason why Hitler had not helped Finland when the Soviets attacked them in 1939. But the Finns knew nothing of this agreement.
They simply couldn't understand why the Germans, who in their perception had always taken part in favor of Finnish independence, now remained passive.
Hitler is performing at his best. Although he had handed Stalin Finland on a platter, he is acting as if he were the great defender of the Finns. As Hitler returned to the airstrip to fly home, he may have already known that he had failed in his mission. He had not convinced Mannerheim that Germany was a reliable ally. Hitler's war would grind on, and as the tide turned against Germany, so too would Finland. The reality of Hitler's attempted seduction of Mannerheim was finally made clear when he turned on the man whose birthday he had just celebrated. 2 years after this meeting, the Finns declared war on Germany and signed a peace treaty with the Soviet Union. The betrayed Finns had turned on their German betrayer. Hitler then dropped all pretense. He wanted revenge, and he ordered a scorched earth policy. Retreating German forces destroyed more than a third of all dwellings in Finnish Lapland. They burned entire cities to the ground, and they left the territory booby-trapped with mines. Ultimately, Hitler reveals his true character to the Finns, a character revealed by his actions, not his words.
Having heard Hitler speak the way he did with Mannerheim, it is easier to understand why others could believe him. He is convincing in the way he speaks, at least for those who wished to believe him.
Überfallen, Sie haben immer gesagt, dass Bessarabien Ihnen gehört, aber Sie haben doch nie erklärt, dass Sie Rumänien überfallen haben.
It is shockingly easy to forget who you are listening to in this recording.
Blutige Kämpfe gewesen, die in der Wüste ausgebrochen worden sind.
The banality of evil has never been so apparent. When Hitler casually refers to the Soviet factory workers as animals,
Arbeitermassen, die allerdings wie Tiere leben.
the consequences of this attitude would be the demise of literally millions of Soviet prisoners, worked and starved to death. When Hitler reflects upon invading France in 1939,
immer vor der Frage gestanden, ich wollte in der Alpenstellung angreifen und ich war überzeugt, dass in 6 Wochen gefangen werden.
rather than 6 months earlier, it is as if the horror and devastation brought by the Nazis was just a minor consequence. And looming over this conversation, like a malicious black cloud, is the Holocaust, which will forever define Adolf Hitler and his brutal brand of evil. At 6:10, the evil manipulator's work was over. Hitler said his farewells to Mannerheim and boarded his plane for the return flight. At exactly that moment, 6,000 miles away in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, one of the pivotal battles of the Second World War was beginning. American forces were engaging Japanese aircraft carriers in the Battle of Midway. The Japanese fleet would never recover. The tide of the war in the Pacific was turning. But as he flew home, Hitler knew nothing of the losses his #1 ally had suffered.
Er möchte präzise wissen, ob diese
This accordion music signals the moment when Tour de Maine stopped his machine. The tape had been used once before to record a concert. But fortunately, de Maine managed to preserve 11 minutes that remind us of a time when absolute evil wore a human face. 8 months later, Hitler's forces suffer a catastrophic defeat at Stalingrad. The war that Hitler's powers of persuasion began ends in suicide in the bowels of his bunker. This tape lives on as a connection with the past and stands forever as a warning for the future.